Welcome to Dispatches, a production of the VVA Veteran Magazine and Vietnam Veterans of America, hosted by arts editor Marc Leepson. Let's begin.
Welcome to Dispatches from the VVA Veteran at Vietnam Veterans of America National Headquarters here in Silver Spring, Maryland. I am delighted to have as our first guest on this show the one and only Troy Evans. The great Troy Evans is going to be with us live from his home in Los Angeles, California. And I think most of you know who Troy is, and I'll just give you a little brief rundown before we get into this talk. He's an actor. He's been an actor in Hollywood for a long time. We'll talk about how he got into it, but you probably know him from his role as the motor pool sergeant, Sergeant Pepper, in the great TV pioneering series China Beach. And if you were an ER fan, you saw him over whatever it was, 9 seasons, all those episodes as the hospital clerk, Frank Martin. And if you're a Bosch fan like I am, he has a recurring role as Detective Johnson, aka Barrel, as in Crate and Barrel on the Bosch series. And you know, Troy's been in something like 50 movies. Ace Ventura, That Detective, is one of his most famous. That really underrated movie, Article 99, which I hope we'll talk about a little later. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Twin Peaks, LA Law, and on and on and on. Troy's from Kalispell, Montana, was drafted into the Army, served 16-month tour of duty in the Vietnam War with the 25th Infantry Division in 68, 69. He came to Hollywood in the early 80s, and since then he's been on, like I said, something like 50 movies and 18,000 television shows. Troy has been a longtime member of Vietnam Veterans of America. He's a veterans advocate. He's a great friend of VVA. He received the Excellence in the Arts Award at our 2003 National Convention, and he has graciously emceed our Arts Awards banquet twice, 2005 at the convention in Reno and 2018 at the National Leadership Conference in Palm Springs. Welcome, my friend, Troy Evans. Great to see you.
It's wonderful to see you, Mark, always, even though it's not in person.
Yeah, Troy and I go way back. And I followed his career, and I'm just thrilled every time he comes on TV. I gather my kids around, send out emails to everybody and say, Troy's on.
You know, my friend Titus Wolliver, who plays Harry Bosch on Bosch, has an expression he uses. He says, "We go back like car seats." You have to be a certain age to appreciate that expression.
Let's just, for people who don't know you, let's give them a brief little sketch about, well, let me ask you this first. While you were humping the boonies in Vietnam 50 odd years ago, did you ever think you would have a career as an actor in Hollywood?
Never crossed my mind. I had no real interest in that area. That wasn't in my plans. I had no interest in being an actor. It never crossed my mind. My grandfather, who was also Troy Evans, was a Montana state senator. And I had an interest in politics very early. And I mean, like grade school age. And I remember listening to the Republican National Convention on one of those big wooden radio consoles in the front room that the front would fold out, and there was a record player in there, you know, the kind I'm talking about. And I formed a plan by the time I was in junior high that I was going to go to the Montana State Legislature. First, I was going to go to law school, go to the legislature, be the governor of Montana, be the senator from Montana, and then I was going to be the first president from a Western state. That was what my plan was. And it was, you know, I've got my high school annuals. Everyone knew it, and people believed me. My annual is full of people sign and say, Troy, please remember me when you're president, you know, stuff like that. I was focused. And by unbeknownst to me, by the time I got back from Vietnam, I was a completely different person. And for one thing, I was a serious alcoholic. And I didn't go back to school. Instead of going back to school, I opened a bar, which it turns out is not a good plan for an alcoholic. And eventually, through I won't go into the details, but let's just call it a bunch of alcohol-fueled jackassery, I ended up in Montana State Prison in the early 70s. And you probably have some knowledge of this, that, when you've been really, really been a drunk, you don't sober up overnight or over the weekend or even in a month. And I was down in the prison for like 6 months and woke up one day and went, I bet I'm not going to be the governor now. Well, no, probably not. So then I started sorting through my options. What am I going to do? Well, I couldn't own a bar anymore. I couldn't go back in the military, felony conviction. By the way, one of the things I did is I got in a beef in a bar and broke a lawyer's legs. Now, who knew that was illegal? But apparently it was. And so I just went through the list. Couldn't be a school teacher, couldn't be an accountant. Couldn't be a lawyer. Just a massive list of things I closed myself off from. And one day I went, wow, I'll bet nobody ever asks an actor if he has a felony conviction. And that is what propelled me in that direction. And that day I said what they call a kite in prison. It's a message I sent to the warden, requested a copy of Hamlet, which he sent to me. I still have that. Inmate Evans, permission to have in his cell Hamlet, stamp in the front, signed by Warden Blodgett. And so then I got out, went to Montana State University down in Bozeman, and took a year of theater classes. And I got great casting, because here I'm a combat veteran, ex-convict in these like freshman college classes with all these other guys who are like 17-year-old high school graduates. Of course, I got cast. So I quickly, and there are a lot of other actors who've made this realization at this state of their career, that I had realized about 3 months in that I was probably the greatest actor in the English-speaking world. Yeah, which eventually I got dissuaded of that. But then that spring, I went to California to visit an old girlfriend who was going to school in Berkeley, and I happened on an audition for a summer theater down there, and got hired. And that a man named Donovan Marley, I'm still close friends with him, and he had a theater down in Santa Maria, California, which was a little broccoli farming town down near Santa Barbara. And that is what really changed my life. Everything, including, you mentioned China Beach. I got China Beach because I had worked in Santa Maria with an actress who married a guy named John Wells, who created China Beach. Or he didn't create China Beach, but he was one of the writer producers of China Beach. And then he went on, he created ER and hired me for ER. And that was a connection from this little theater in this little town on the coast of California. And just to continue that thread, that same summer, this is 1976, and there was an actor named Mark Harrier who was in that company, and he had a friend who he knew from Reed College in Oregon, who was a young playwright. And he came through, and he was this little guy with a little briefcase full of his scripts, and came through, and I just met him. His name was Eric Overmeyer. And that's over 44 years ago. and he is the executive producer of Bosch on Amazon.
Yeah.
Created that with Michael Connelly.
So,
So there's a lot, and I also met my wife at that theater. So
Hollywood's kind of like a small town a little bit, isn't it? People, you keep running into people like that. And
yes, and I suspect it's true in every business. But I remember clearly my first day at that theater, and they gathered everyone, all the technicians and all the actors and everybody in there the first Saturday morning to start the summer session of that theater. About 200 people in that theater. And Donovan Marley, the man I mentioned, said, "This is where you will meet the people who will affect your life, your professional life, for the rest of your life." He says, "And they're not up here with me, and they're not up in the office." He said, "Look to your right and look to your left, and those are the people."
Right.
And it's been true over and over and over and over. So I think that's probably true in life in general, but in my life, it's been textbook.
I'm going to talk a little bit about China Beach. Did you all know that you were doing something pioneering? I mean, the first show, TV series about the Vietnam War.
Oh, I think there was some awareness of that. I mean, clearly they wanted to. John Sackett Young, the creator, he was trying to do something great, and I came to it late. I came to it in the second season, and it was kind of funny. The first time I was hired on it, it was a scene where Dana Delaney and Mark Helgenberger had been sent back to the States for some reason. And when they got there, they got put through like a decontamination chamber. And there was a guy, sort of an R. Lee Ermey kind of guy, just screaming military crap at them. And so I was hired to do that. It wasn't even scripted. Just John knew I could do that, and he hired me. And I'm just yelling and insulting at those two people. And that was it. But then a few months later, they brought me back as the motor pool sergeant, and I became a series regular. So a funny thing about I'm very fond of that whole experience, and I'm very fond of all those people. But oddly enough, I was the only Vietnam veteran there, and I was kind of the odd man out, and just because they had all met on the pilot, and they bonded, and they did that whole first season. And then I came in, and I was older than them. And so I was never a true fit socially on the set. It wasn't that I was spurned or rejected. It was just, you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
It just, they were tight and I wasn't.
Hey, Troy, did they ask you as a Vietnam vet for any kind of technical advice, or are we doing this right, or stuff like that?
Not very often. Not very. And they did have people there. They always had advisors, and they always do that on sets. And I imagine there were times that I had advice and stuff, but also what we were shooting was kind of outside my experience. I was not a motor pool sergeant, and wasn't in a base camp and all that stuff. So, and I don't remember having problems. I've been on sets where I was disturbed because they were doing stuff that was nonsensical, but I don't remember really having that experience on China Beach. I'll tell you an experience that I do recall is one night we were out shooting. This is out a place about 20 miles north of LA called Saugus Ranch, where that's also, I think, where they shot MASH. And it was super, super rainy, and we were shot well into the night. So it's about 4 o'clock in the morning. They called me to the set, and I went running. It's dark and wet and rain, and I tripped on something and fell in the mud. And I looked up, and I tripped over a body bag, and it almost killed me.
Yep.
You talk about a flashback. I was like, and I really, well, no, that's not a person in there. That's, you know, but that's one of my vivid recollections from China Peach.
But let's talk a little bit about Article 99. I call it one of the most underappreciated, really good movies. Can you tell folks about it, what it was like being on there and your part?
Oh, that was just a dream experience. I love that so much. This guy, Ron Cutler, wrote that wonderful screenplay about, it was about a battle inside a Veterans Administration hospital for an administrator who didn't care about the vets and the doctors who were trying to serve them. And a wonderful guy named Howie Deutsch directed it. And it had a fantastic cast. See if I Kiefer Sutherland, Ray Liotta, Forrest Whitaker, Eli Wallach, Kathy Baker, Leah Thompson, just for starting, a wonderful character actor named Leo Burmeister, who's no longer with us. I mean, it was just a wonderful cast, and we shot in Kansas City, Missouri, and it was just fantastic. And everywhere we went, that's the only time in a 44-year career that I've ever been like included in the publicity tour and that stuff, because I had a fairly major part in that movie. And everywhere we went, the critics loved it, and the audiences loved it who saw it. But it was at a studio that was bankrupt, and they didn't have money to promote it properly. Usually if it costs $40 million to make a movie, it takes a little bit more than that to promote the movie. It's kind of the rule of thumb. You have to have double. And they thought that with all those people on the all those stars in that movie, that they could just put it out in the theaters and it would build an audience. And we thought that we were going to go to the Academy Awards with that movie, and it opened the same day as Wayne's World. And Wayne's World did what, $400 million, and we did nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, like $1 million national box office, and we were gone in 2 days. So, and I always felt it was really a lost opportunity, because it really told a story of that needed to be told, and told it in a beautiful artistic way. And I've always felt really bad about it. That, by the way, is I didn't know anything about the VVA, and while I was in Kansas City, I joined the VVA chapter there. I've been a life member of that chapter since then, which is 35 years ago or something like that. So
that's one of our active chapters. And
yes.
We're glad to have you as a member.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to be a member.
So I think if people know about your career, maybe the one thing they know is Ace Ventura. And I know Jim Carrey is a wild man, and I wondered if you could tell us a few Jim Carrey, Ace Ventura stories, or just in general, kind of what it was like working on that, and what you get from fans, because I know people still, I've been with you when people came up to you and said,
yeah,
right,
yeah, Roger Podacter. One of my favorite experiences in life was once in Montana about 20 years ago, a little bar by Flathead Lake. There's a band playing this little bar called the Podactors. And I went in there and they just about had heart attacks. Oh my God, Roger Podacter is here. Jim Carrey, I sort of draw a parallel between him and Steve Martin. I've been in 3 Steve Martin movies, and the thing that they have in common is that they're not primarily funny people.
Good.
They're primarily really smart people, really, really smart people. And so Jim Carrey, you would think between takes, it would be, fucking around and joking and doing it. But when you finish a take, Jim Carrey is in a zone. He's thinking about what can I do to make the next take a little bit funnier, and almost always successful. And now Steve Martin, in contrast, and I don't say this to disparage him, but if the camera isn't rolling, you're talking to an accountant. I mean, I had what I consider to be a hilarious encounter with Steve Martin. I was in his movie, Leap of Faith. Do you know that movie where he's a traveling evangelist, con man? And I had a scene where they're driving him with his choir and his people that he takes around to these big religious events he has to raise money. And the driver is, I forget if he was drunk or if he was speeding or what he was doing. And Steve Martin substitutes himself for the driver just to show everybody how he can manipulate this highway patrolman, which he does. I end up, instead of giving him a ticket, I give him a donation and all this. And so we're in Amarillo, Texas, where it's windy, and we're out on this in the middle of nowhere on this highway, and the wind is blowing, and we start at 6 a.m. and we go till 12, and Steve Martin and I are nose to nose doing this scene, and they say cut, and Steve Martin turns away from me, and as if I'm not even there, or I'm a pole or something. This is like the third Steve Martin movie I'd done, and this goes on all morning. They say cut, and they turn away. So, I mean, I don't care. Steve Martin's not paid to entertain me, So, we just got through it, and then they called lunch, and I started to walk away, and Steve said, "Troy, do you want to have lunch?" I said, "Sure." So I go to his trailer, which is very, very nice, and food on movie sets is good, and the food in Steve Martin's trailer is really, really good. And so we have this beautiful lunch, and I'm in there with him for an hour, and he doesn't say a word. And the whole time I'm trying to get something going. It was good. And I'd say, "So, Steve, you live mostly in Los Angeles? You have a home somewhere else?" Or go, "Yeah." Okay. So I through the hour, longest hour. I mean, it was worse than being in prison. In prison, people will at least talk to you, I get out, and so the next day we go out there in the morning. We're continuing the scene. It's the same thing. He doesn't speak to me through the whole morning, but when they called lunch, I was gone. Gone. And over in line with the crew, get my meal, go over, sit down under the shelters out. They've got big umbrella things up, tent things up, and sit down at a table with my lunch. And I look up, and there he is. He comes and sits with me at the lunch table, and spent the second lunch with me out with the crew, not saying nothing. So my guess is Steve Martin likes me. He's just not a chatty guy. So anyway, that's my story about that. I also want to mention on Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, this guy Tom Shadyac, who directed it, and is a really fantastic comedy director. And after Ace Ventura, he had some sort of a personal epiphany, and he gave away all his money. He quit working in the movies, and he lives in a trailer house somewhere up the California coast and does charity work. That's all he does.
What was it? Something you said?
What? It's something I said probably. Yeah. But I just thought that I find it very admirable and pretty rare
It,
to go, I mean, he could have anything he wanted. And I guess he's got what he wanted. So
well, let's move on to the Bosch situation, because I think my people who read my columns know that I'm a giant fan of Michael Connelly. I happened upon his first book, Black Echo, in 1992. I saw it. Harry Bosch, the main character, was a tunnel rat in the Vietnam War. I read it. I ate it up. I thought it was just fantastic. And I've read every one of the gosh darn 23 Bosch books since then. Giant fan. And I was thrilled that he got a TV deal for Bosch. I was a little disappointed that he changed Bosch from being a Vietnam War vet to a current war veteran. But of course I understood because of the age situation. But
right.
I was thrilled that you were on it. And I wanted to get your impressions of Connelly. I know he's pretty much involved in is he involved in as many aspects of it as I think he is? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Number one, Harry Bosch's motto is everybody counts or nobody counts. And it's one thing to write that down on a piece of paper, but I'll tell you, Michael Connelly lives that. And now I catch myself. I'm crying. I like the man so much and admire him so much. He is so generous and so modest. And I have no idea how he accomplishes everything that he does. He must sleep 1 hour a day. And his concern is that everybody be happy. And do you remember I mentioned Eric Overmyer, who is the young playwright that I met in 1976, and Eric went to a dinner in New York about 10 years ago and sat next to Michael Connelly. And well, actually, Eric's wife sat in between Michael Connelly and Eric, and both of them are sort of in the Steve Martin book. They don't talk much. These are listeners. And Eric's poor wife is caught between them at some sort of writer's dinner for 3 hours, and they don't say anything to each other. And then 6 months later, Eric got a call in New Orleans. Said, Eric, this is Michael Connelly. I'm a writer. Eric says, yes, I know who you are. He says, well, I'm developing my Bosch books for a TV series, and I wondered if you would run that for me. So apparently he spent that 3 hours not talking to him and thought, this is my kind of guy. and Eric is a fan. Do you know The Wire?
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah. That's Eric Overmyer.
Uh-huh.
And the point that I'm making in a not very effective way is that Michael Connelly is also willing to share power and responsibility. And he's there all the time, and he's certainly active, but Eric is the controlling creative force behind the TV version. And he's very, very good at it. And
you tell people a little bit about Crate and Barrel. We don't know. Yeah.
Well, first of all, if you're on a series called Bosch, either you're Bosch or you're not Bosch.
You're Bosch.
And I'm not Bosch. But he has a couple of buddies who are also homicide detectives, who he calls Crate and Barrel. And Crate is my buddy Scott Cummins, who is a wonderful actor who actually was in the NFL for a couple of years. And he's like 6'5" and 220 and muscle and bone. And then there's Roly Poly Troy, who is Barrel, Crate and Barrel. And that was, they actually, I'm sure you know, they only appear in a couple of the books.
Right.
But when Eric started developing the TV show, he told Michael Connelly, you have to have more Crate and Barrel, because on television you can't have just this unrelenting wall of death. You have to have some levity and so Crate and Barrel are, and they're more than just the comic relief, but that's their main function, is to a little pressure relief valve. And I'll just my friend Greg he's just a lovely guy, and it's been a real gift to work with him for 7 years. But when he was playing football, he did get hit in the head a few times.
Good.
And the second season of Bosch came in, and what I do, I don't sit in my little dressing room. I get ready, and then I go in on the set and I wait there. And then when they're ready for me, they're not banging on the door and I'm scurrying in. I hate starting work that way. So I take something to read and I sit in at my desk in the police station. And so on this day, like the first day of the second season, and I took a stack of mail, and Greg came in and we're chatting, and he's glancing down at the desk. He looked down and he said, "What the fuck is that?" I said, it's a Crate and Barrel catalog. He said, "What?" I said, "It's a Crate and Barrel catalog." He said, "You're shitting me. Let me see that." And he picked it up. He looked, he said, "Oh my God. They named a store after us." He'd been doing the park for a year.
And he didn't know.
And he didn't know what Crate and Barrel was. Oh God, one of my favorite things ever happened in my life. He's the reason they put the instructions on the shampoo bottle.
Okay.
Let me go ahead.
Yeah. We're coming to the end of our time here. This has been fabulous. Thank you for doing this. I just wanted to see if it would be okay with you, if you could share with our viewers your email address and why you chose that email address. You don't have to tell them your whole email address, but just the first part of it.
Oh, Lumpy Face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had a friend named Chuck Callahan, who's a character actor who's passed, who used that term. And I've kind of stolen it from him. Over the past now almost 50 years, there's a group of men that I am friends with, and I'm friends with them because when we go to auditions, out of say the 50 or 60 of us, when you go to the audition, there'll be 15 or 20 of those guys in the room, and you all go in audition, and one of you is going to be the sheriff. And that's what I call the Lumpy Face Guys Club. And I'm the executive vice president of the Lumpy Face Guys Club. So,
I love that. Thank you very much for doing this, Troy.
You're welcome. I hope I didn't drone on too long.
No, not at all. This is fantastic. You're the best. Wish you all the best. And
always, if you run out of people, I'd always love to do it again.
We can do Troy Evans too. Thanks. Thanks, Troy. See you soon.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Take care. Well, thanks everybody for watching, and stay tuned soon for our next episode of Dispatches from the VVA veteran at Vietnam Veterans of America.